Hey, what's up guys? My name is Erica and this is Highway 49RC. If you guys are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that would be fantastic. Behind me here is my Traxxas Splash. It is a water-cooled Traxxas Slash 4x4 that I've custom built. And today I want to do some upgrades to it. The first thing that needs to be done is regarding the fans up front here. These fans are not pushing enough air past my radiators for my liking. With that in mind, I'm going to do a little airflow test for you guys so you can tell before and after. And then I'm going to be putting in these Team Brewed fans. They're 40mm, they're aluminum, supposedly 16,000 RPM, so they should push quite a lot of air compared to these ones that are on here before. I've also got some like fan cover plates and an outerwears filter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some of the material from the outerwears filter, put it on the inside of these fan covers, so then it'll act as a filter for my fans to keep dirt, rocks, and just other general crap out of them, because they were kind of expensive and I want to keep them nice, you know? And lastly is suspension related. I've got these Proline Power Stroke shocks currently in the rear, as you can see, and I have a second set of them here. And I want to put them in the front, because the front end, when I was testing this out a couple weeks ago, was just a big old trampoline. It was just bouncing along in the grass, and I wasn't a big fan. So I'm going to put these ones on. They're a little too long, though, for the front. They fit perfectly in the rear, but they're too long for the front. So I picked up some limit straps for the front to help keep the driveline at an appropriate angle and just keep them from overextending too far. Because they're pretty close, but they're probably about 1 centimeter to 13 millimeters too long. So these should take care of the front, these should take care of the back, because the back is a little overextended currently as well. The driveline is not super happy in it. Let me grab a battery and we will do a quick airflow test on the fans so you guys can see for future reference. I'll have to get the fans off to decide how I'm going to be mounting these, because the screws that are on these fans currently are like 2mm screws, and they're not going to be long enough for these new fans and the covers. So I might have to either drill out and tap the radiator, or I might have to come up with some other sort of custom mounting setup. Got my battery hooked up here. This is 1 ply of a piece of toilet paper, because that was like the thinnest, lightest weight thing I could find. Let's go ahead and turn this on. Yeah, that's pretty sad. Alright, let's get these fans off and see how we're going to mount the new ones. This is totally a disaster, but I got one of the fans off and pulled the radiator off. On a side note, actually, the thermal paste on the ESC and water block spread out perfectly, so that was awesome. Here's the new fan. It should fit on there, and the old screws would probably be long enough. But the thing is they're not going to be long enough with the cover on there as well. So what I'm gonna do, I think, because the bracket, because the way this works is the radiator goes behind the bracket, fan goes on top of the bracket, and then it gets sandwiched. And the holes in this bracket are big enough for your standard 3mm screw. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do, very carefully, is drill or somehow hand drill out these holes, because they're brass. And it actually, unfortunately, looks like they are in, like the threads are inserts that are soldered in. I'm not sure if you can see that on the camera, but it appears that they're soldered in. So that's kind of annoying, and I'm not going to use a drill on it. So I'm going to come up with some other way to spin a drill bit by hand very carefully, because I don't want to puncture the radiators, of course, either. And try and drill and tap those out. Yeah. Wish me luck. I'm a little nervous. So far I've gotten 6 for 7, one insert over here spun, just because it was soldered in poorly. But I figured I'd show you just how like nerve-wracking a process this is, because it's not just doing it, it's the way it sounds. Doesn't that just sound terrible? Okay, there we go. It's drilled out. I managed to put the right size drill bit in the end of my screwdriver, which coincidentally it was the exact perfect size. So that's drilled out. This is just to keep the bit from pushing into the like brass behind the mounting plate, because that's where fluid is, and obviously we don't want to create a leak here. We'll just tap it real quick. I made this custom little tapping knob in one of my CNC wheel videos. I don't remember which one, but I will link it in a card and you guys can go check that out if you want to see how I made it. I didn't do it super in-depth like how I did it, but there's a time lapse in there if you want to see it, so. And there we go. There is 7 of 8, which is pretty good. Went a lot smoother and faster than I was originally anticipating. I guess next is to make up the fan covers and filters, and then we can get all these things sandwiched together and back on their bracket. I've gone and salvaged the raw material from the outerwears filter that I got, and there's actually quite a lot here, so I could make a good handful of filters out of this. There's the bottom piece. To rip the seams, actually, I did not use a seam ripper. I used an X-Acto knife with the blade on it sideways and up, like the sharp bit of it is up right here. I use this when I do my cross stitch and I have to rip seams out, or have to rip out stitches, and this works really great. It's just easy because you can go from the top and you don't have to put something like horizontally to the fabric to rip out the seam. You can just go like that. You just have to be a little careful of the tip, but I don't find it a big deal. So yeah, and my hole puncher just broke, which sucks, but it'll still work because I'm gonna punch a little hole in the center because there's a little nub. So yeah, there you go. There's a little nub there in the middle of the cover, and I just want to make sure that the filter clears that. And then I'm probably gonna take a little bit of sandpaper to the cover itself and roughen it up so that it will take some CA glue real nice. Hey, post-production Erica here. Instead of using sandpaper to scuff up the back side of the fan covers, I was using my X-Acto knife to put some scratches on there to prep it for gluing because sandpaper just wasn't cutting it for me. The debris filters are glued on to the fan covers. Now it's just time to put everything back together and give it a quick airflow test. got the fans mounted up here. I did do a quick test on my own, and these things blow like crazy. So much better. Except for the fact that, I don't know if you could hear it, but they're slowing down. Like, they spool down. I think the reason for that is I'm pretty sure when I made this like 3-way split wiring harness, I'm pretty sure I put a couple resistors in there to drop the voltage down from 3S. And I'm gonna guess that those are getting hot, and as a wire or a resistor heats up, the more resistance it gets. So with that in mind, I think that's why my fans are slowing down. That's going to be something I deal with off camera just because that's a bigger electrical thing that I don't want to deal with you guys. So for right now, it's a success. Fans are blowing the right direction. I just got to get everything else buttoned up again. And well, I forgot to press record on my GoPro for a time lapse of getting the new suspension components all installed. And once I realized that, I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna finish this all off camera, forget it, and show you guys now. So I got the new shocks mounted up. They needed some spacers behind them, because otherwise the springs would run into these tie rod ends. Yeah? Yeah. I had to make a cross bracket here this morning. I had these limit straps originally attached to the shock tower here, but they were running into the shock at like full extension. Like, I could push them away, but then at full extension it would hinge back and hit the top of the shock. So I was like, I don't really like that, especially because these are kind of old and rare shocks and I want to keep them relatively nice. So I made a little cross bracket. There's multiple holes there for adjustment. If I want it a little bit lower, I can adjust it. But they work. Admittedly, I found that they are actually 5 millimeters longer than what they say. So if you guys ever get these hot racing limit straps, get them 5 millimeters shorter than you think you need, because they stretch. Food for thought. The fans and radiators and dirt guards look absolutely fantastic. It just makes it look so clean, especially with the blue shock caps. Like, it really adds a little bit of bling to the front of the rig and makes the cooling system feel a little bit cooler and more substantial. Cooler, get it? As for the fans slowing down, I put some thought into it and I realized that all the power for the whole cooling system is going through that little servo switch that I made. And those things, you know, don't have a lot of current going through them, so they're not designed to take a large amount of current. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a relay and a voltage regulator to use the servo switch to trigger the relay. I want to have 12 volts going to my pump and then 12 volts going to the voltage regulator, which is going to drop the voltage down to like 8 volts for the fans. That's the plan. I found some parts on Amazon. I'm going to get them ordered. I'll mess with it off camera and probably talk to you guys about it in the next episode. I also put the rear limit straps on. I drilled a little hole in the back of the rear A-arm there because there wasn't space for them up near the shock, so I just put them in the back because there's holes in the back of the shock tower also. That worked out really well. And then one other thing about the front ones, I had to run a screw all the way through to the inside of the RPM arm and put the limit strap on the inside, because on the outside it again was running into the shock and there just wasn't space for it. So I thought, well, alright, that'll work pretty good. It just barely clears the drive lines, which is good. One other thing I want to address real quick is I had a couple people in the comments of one of the videos for this truck mention about these splitters going into and out of the radiator. My reasoning for splitting it, so like they were saying just hook the radiators up in series and you'll get better cooling performance, which yes, I agree with. However, in this scenario, the inlets to my radiators are about 1/3 of the size of the lines going to them. So with that in mind, if I hooked it up in series, there would be an unbelievably large amount of restriction and flow resistance, just because it's so small. That's why I've got it hooked up the way I do partially to have both radiators working just as hard, but also because if I don't do that, it's gonna like lower the flow rate of the whole system. Hopefully that like helps you guys understand my thinking as to splitting the two radiators out in parallel. With that, you guys, thank you so much again for watching. If this does happen to be the first video that you have seen by me, make sure you leave a like and hit that subscribe button too. That would be absolutely fantastic. As always, follow me on Instagram at highway49_RC. Support me on Patreon if you can. Join the Discord server. We're always talking about something cool over there. If you can become a member, that would totally help me out a ton. It'd be greatly appreciated. And with that, you guys, I think that's all I've got to say. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see y'all on the next one.